Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? The European dream has became a nightmare, and straight away we're looking at a January transfer window where the manager's already told us what we know. The squad needs downsized a little bit. There needs to be a further emphasis on quality that can move the team on. We just had a club AGM where they're reporting huge bank balances, very ambitious off-the-field plans. Well, we're all looking at what's going on the field and pulling our hair out going, why did we not strengthen from a position of strength? Brendan Rodgers, this pre-game press conference he's had, for the game against St Johnstone at the weekend, he said that when he came in, he reckoned we needed another 4 players, significant players, to add to the team we already had. At that point, we still had Starfelt, we still had Jota, and he then goes on to maybe distance himself from the decision making of some of the squad, some of the fringe players that did make up the numbers of the transfer window when we look at the ins and the outs and see, oh, look how many players came in. He's kind of give himself a wee bit of arm distance from some of them, perhaps. In the video today, guys, we're going to be looking at if we were to add 4 players of significant quality into this Celtic team, where might Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic talent ID department be scouted for to improve the team we currently have? And, I'm going to have a look at some of the talents that might be out there that fit the kind of profile of what we could use. At any point, if you laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel. We're pushing for 10,000 subscribers, and we cannot do that without your support, guys. So if you do enjoy the content here, hit the subscribe button for more, hit the like button, and get into the comment section and let me know, out of all the picks we have in the video today, which one is your favourite? Who would you most like to see turn up at Celtic Park? And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. The first place we have to start is where the squad currently sits. Now, we could start this off by imagining we still had Jota and Starfelt and move some of the pieces of the puzzle around that gets us to the situation we've got the defence in. But if you're watching this, you're a Celtic fan, you know that we signed Navrocki because we needed a left-footed centre-back. No one thought Scales was the real deal. He is, so that's fine. And Phillips and Lagerbielke only came in as emergency when Starfelt decided he was going to follow Jacinta over to, I was going to say the Mediterranean, but where both of them are, it's not really Mediterranean-based. We still have Welsh, we still have UK. The defence, we've got bodies there. I don't think, even when he came into the club, I don't think he would have thought there was a need for more than one defender. I think we thought that we needed a maybe 2 actually. I'm going to stick with 2 because I think we needed a left-footed centre-back before Scales emerged. And I think most people would agree we need a left back because Bernabe's been absolutely bombed out, and Taylor is fine, but he's not all things in all games, unfortunately. He does have strengths and weaknesses like every player, and he does have a ceiling, which, players develop and, progress through in different levels. And at the moment, we've seen his level in the Champions League, unfortunately. We've seen it a little bit for Scotland. Just that next kind of level, that next kind of stage, he's maybe just not had enough experience there compared to maybe some other stuff. We could talk about that all day. But we've not been linked to many left backs. There's not been much smoke to give us the suggestion that there's a fire there somewhere with a left back, which is why I hesitated there. Because I'm not really that sure that if it was a position that the manager thought we were going to have to reinforce in, when we go and bring in the amount of defenders we did bring in, not one of them was a left back or even a hybrid left back, left centre back. Yes, Scales might be that, but Rodgers didn't bring him in. Rodgers didn't see the squad and think we need that, let's add that in. So I'm not too sure how to sit on that. I think one for defence is really all he would have thought coming into it, and subsequently in that situation I think we're all good. Phillips is on loan, he's going to be expiring in January, which is fine. And I think then once we loan out or sell Yuki Kobayashi back into Japan, I think the defence situation is thoroughly fine. Bernabe being bombed out, but does leave a gap because the manager didn't pick him in the Champions League groups. He's not even rotated in domestically. So it does feel that Bernabe's days are numbered. And I think that is an area we do need to have a look at here. Now, in midfield, it's probably the biggest area that we have numbers over quality. Without Hatate, with him being injured at the moment, the wheels have kind of fell off how we progress the ball, how we go from back to front, left to right, how we can cut a team open, how we can just make something out of nothing, and generally how we can dominate a team when we can actually get high-scoring results in those games where, we should. I think Odenholm is a good Padawan, is a good understudy, and he definitely is trying, and Rodgers has given him the minutes, and he's fine to come on here. But Paul's Boutique, Paulo Bernardo, I'm just not a big fan of him, to be honest with you. I don't think he's played a good game for us. He's not shown me anything to suggest why we've ID'd him, why we've brought him in, why he's been playing. I'm sure he's good in training. I'm sure he's an elite player. He clearly is. You don't get capped for Portugal if you're not. But in this system, even when Rodgers is playing him, Rodgers is picking him, Rodgers signed him, I just don't see where he fits. This loan deal, I don't see it being kept on. And the way we behaved last year, like we cut the Jens loan short because we made another deal happen. There was some moving pieces, like Yuki Kobayashi, I think it might have been, or something. I forget the ins and outs of it. But I wouldn't be surprised if we, to get the numbers down, we'll let Bernardo go back to Benfica, perhaps. Now, back here, God knows, McCarthy's just never even referenced or anything, but I think it's safe to imagine that Kwon will do an Ideguchi and probably get a cheeky loan back to the J-League. And Iwata, it feels like he does kind of have a place in the squad, but it's not a very high place. It feels like it is the lowest run of the ladder. But he does make the bench. He does make some sub-appearances. He has scored a goal this season, and I wouldn't want him to leave. I think he deserves a chance. I think a lot of Celtic fans feel bad for him and definitely think the wee man has earned a crust. You know what I mean? Like, he should get some minutes. We should see, in the absence of Hatate, maybe the option to see McGregor play that role and Iwata could play there. You know, there's a few things that could happen here. Who knows what happens with McCarthy? But anyway, I think we've managed to thin out some of the numbers. Now, Johnson is out of contract in the summer, as is Turnbull, as is Joe Hart. So there's 3 more positions that in the summer, with the goalkeeper, ideally sooner rather than later, we do visit and we do tie something on with here. But with Mikey Johnson, who's been good for depth at the moment, I don't think is all that essential to the squad. I don't think his services will be retained. And Turnbull's getting some mad links now to like AC Milan. I don't know if you want to read into that. I think it's probably clickbait. But again, you know, Serie A clubs have been shopping in Scotland. He would probably fit a team like AC Milan actually really, really well. Like, honestly, like AC Milan last year played a guy called Brahim Diaz. He's at Real Madrid at the moment, and he's just not that good. Turnbull could definitely do a better job for AC Milan than Brahim Diaz. I would put my name against that all day, every day. But personally, if we're going to sell Turnbull or if Turnbull's going to move on past Celtic in his career, I'd like to see him move to Spain. I think that would maybe suit him a little bit better. But I think with the fact that, and let's see what happens this weekend, I'm recording this before the St Johnstone game, but Odenholm has played like the last 3 or 4 league matches ahead of Turnbull. I've got a feeling he's not signing a contract, and that's why he's maybe on the block, as I say, smoking fire. When it comes to Scottish football transfers, sometimes that's quite, you know, an indicator to read into. So midfield is clearly an area where we need quality, and we need maybe 2 people in here in a couple of different modes, depending on your point of view, with a couple of the players here, of course. Does Iwata have a future? Is Odenholm good enough to play, you know, let's say 20 games over a season for where he's at the moment? Because that's what he's probably on track to clock at the moment. And in the forward areas, do you know, it's a funny one because Daizen Maeda can play centre forward as well. A lot of people think we need another centre forward at the moment. I think O is shown to be he's really up for learning under Rodgers. Every time he's came on recently, he's looked very, you know, vibrant. He's been right in amongst it. He's been itching to do it, as per that's all we've seen from O. So fair play to him. But Kyogo's been really off the boil. Now, talking about the loose links, like we said to Turnbull, I'm catching loose links in America and linking Kyogo to the Seattle Sounders. Now, I don't know how much there is in that, right? But MLS, but they don't really mess around with rumours. There's not really, like, they don't just, it's not like Turkey or like some of these Premier League teams or some of the ones in France and Spain that just get linked to every player under the sun. Normally, especially when it's a specific MLS club, normally there is smoke and fire in that situation there. So I don't really know what to read into that. It's probably the only way we would get a really good fee for someone like Kyogo, where the age he's at. If Ange wasn't going to come and sign him for Tottenham, I really don't, you know, if Ange doesn't sign him, then I think that would give a lot of other teams the fear that, like, oh, well, if he's not going to go and buy him, who was like his dad basically when he was up here, especially with Daizen, then maybe that would put some other teams off that were maybe thinking about it, you know. So an MLS club coming in for him who would pay him a lot of money, would pay us probably commensurate with what you would hope if you were to sell Kyogo, what they would get. I don't want to see him leave. I'm just telling you there's a link out there, and just, you know, beware in case any links kind of materialise going forward. But every time I look at this and every time I talk to people, they're always telling me that Abada's going to leave because of the whole, you know, off the pitch stuff, which I'm not going to go into. It's not my place. But everyone's certain he's going to leave. Rodgers said he can't wait to have him back. He can't wait to have Abada and Daizen back. And I think if this is our front three, we're actually in a really good position. Like, we've just not... Look at the green team here. How often has that team played this year? And, you know, Scales was obviously an unknown. It might have been the Rocky. You can do that wherever you want. It's like never played this year, especially in Europe. It's like maybe the Feyenoord game at a push. But, like, we've been really under strength in the key areas for, you know, different reasons. Because Abada... Like, no one can really... the amount of goals and assists that he's just involved in and just gets goals over the line or just has that pass, it just finds a guy. He's been such a big miss. And Daizen's been kind of out of position. You know, if Abada does go, for example, let's imagine Abada does leave, right? We've then got Dyson over here, and then Palma. People are probably shouting already at the video, like, why is Palma down as a backup player? I think, well, if Bada's fit, I think that's the team you probably start at the moment. I don't think, although Palma's been fantastic, I don't think he outranks. Again, it's that wand of a left foot he's got, isn't it? Difficult to say. Interesting one for the comment section, perhaps. If Abada's fit, what is the front choice front three on paper? And then between Tilio, Jan can play on both sides. So again, it depends how you want to look at the depth here. But I really don't think there's much of a need for an actual striker. If we could have someone else who's versatile enough to play in another couple of positions in the forward spaces, then I would be happy enough with that. But I do hear a real cry out for another goal scorer. But the kind of player I'm talking about should be a goal scorer. That's not an exclusive thing where they need to be a target man to be a goal scorer. You know what I mean? Dyson can play centre forward, blah, blah, blah. So I think really for this team, we're looking at a goalkeeper, a left mid, and, I'm looking at 3 different players to play in midfield to attack, depending on really what the structure is. I don't really know what inside the recruitment hub is Celtic. Are they thinking about a player that plays like this? Because we're all crying out for a defensive midfielder, right? But I watch a lot of European football, and so many of the elite teams are moving into what I've called the 888, where they've got 3 number 8 midfielders. It's not that creative, right? But they just all play box to box. Like Newcastle's a really good example of it with what they tried to do by signing Tonali, playing him alongside Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton, and just having all 3 of them like go around the whole game and really run it, using good athleticism and world-class ability, of course. So a lot of teams are moving towards that, Swiss Army knife midfield where all 3 of them can turn their hand to all sides of the game. And I think that we do have that with our best midfield here. Maybe it's what limits Iwata a little bit, where maybe Rodgers doesn't think he has enough going forward. If he did find himself in space, he wouldn't make the most of it, but he scored a peach of a goal. What do I know? I don't really know. This is just, what could they be thinking? Odenholm, I think, can do both sides of the game. He's still quite raw, still quite young, of course. So I've tried to get 3 different midfielders. I think 2 of them should be guys we would pick up. And I've went with a goalkeeper as well for 4, because Joe Hart is out of contract. And again, there's not any smoke of a rumour that he's going to be getting offered an extension or something. So we should be in the market for a goalkeeper. And the number 1 goalkeeper I think Celtic should be trying to pursue in the January transfer window, in the summer transfer window, whatever, especially if we're sticking with this model of trying to unearth some talent and trying to go down that route, is Ivor Pandur. The Croatian youth international goalkeeper, I beg your pardon, has had a couple of seasons of first team football under his belt. And he's a guy that, for all the modern goalkeeper statistics, like shot stopping inside the box as well as distribution, he's a guy that ranks amongst some of the best of the young goalkeepers around European football. And having, not really attached himself yet to like a bigger team where he's always on the bench or out on loan from, this is a guy that I think has got a good enough profile that Celtic could see, oh, hey, if we spent a couple of quid on this guy and he does well for us, we could easily sell him for a little bit more later on with his youth international pedigree. Because again, one of the things I think that frustrates all of us as fans is when you hear the club talking about, oh, we've got a method of buying players and whatever. I don't think they understand sometimes the consistencies between the players they're identifying, like an Odsonne Edouard, a Jeremy Frimpong, Moussa Dembele, Patrick Roberts. I don't know, Patrick Roberts never really made money out of it or anything, but, Christopher Ayer. These guys are like youth internationals that they're getting pedigree, they're getting high level first team minutes at age group, and even, wherever we're finding them from domestically, first team senior football. Like we signed Ayer, he was playing 15. He was playing at the age of 15 when we signed him. He was captain of his team at 16. Something like that. Now, when it comes to left back, I think Rodgers, one of the things that's kind of missing in the Celtic team is an out-and-out left back, a guy that can quite comfortably be an outlet on an attacking sense, can overlap somebody like Palma, or if it was a Dyson Maeda that was playing over that side, whatever, can cut inside and can play with him, can do kind of all aspects of running into either this channel here in support or on the overlap for the cross or for the support that comes with that as well. And I don't think Taylor does that job exceptionally well. I think we quite clearly see Taylor best operates in these little pockets in this inverted fullback position. Yes, he can do all the dirty work, he can do the heavy lifting, but actually then the end product from these positions isn't the same from somebody like Taylor. So I can imagine very easily a guy like Kai Wagner, who at the age of 26 is long been on the list of MLS players who should leave the MLS, should go back to Europe in his case because he's German, because they're too good for the league. The level of output that he's putting out is incredible. The Philadelphia Union have been a very successful team while Kai Wagner's been there. He's a championship winning guy. And one of the things we value as Celtic fans when we do sell players to bigger teams is that guy learned to be a bit of a winner here. You know, he won the league, he won the cup, he did this, he did that. And that's part of the things that makes a Celtic player when they leave here maybe a better player. They go on to do something amazing. And Kai Wagner is in that kind of mould. We would be receiving him in that sense, but where he's, you know, won playoff matches, he's won titles, etc. And you might demean MLS or whatever, right? But, you know, the SPFL isn't exactly the highest level of football in the world. So I think this is a guy that would, number one, be capable of the level of really delivering an elite level attacking left-back output, what we'd see in Scotland. Now, what we would get from him in Europe, I'm not going to lie, it would be a bit of a gamble, it would be a bit of a question mark, but he's out of contract at the end of the calendar year. He is in the prime of his career, kind of similar to Kyogo. You know, he's 26, same age as we got Kyogo at, I'm sure. Over his last 40 games, he's got 10 assists and 1 goal, which isn't too bad for a left-back. And as you can see, he's a high-scoring operator. He's a guy that's got a lot of final third output, lots of balls into the box, great passing statistics here from left-back, wins his tackles, wins his duels. This game here, this is capped at 100, right? But he actually scored 124, 125, 15 balls into the box that resulted in good chances, 5 interceptions as well, which is crazy, 4 tackles. So, you know, I mean, this guy, like, you know who you're getting. This is like Juranovic, kind of. It's maybe a bit closer to Juranovic than Kyogo because he's a defender. And again, he's Celtic's favourite price. He's going to be next to nothing. So, a guy that should be moving to Europe, should have moved to Europe by now, and I think could quite easily come into this squad and compete with a Taylor. And again, I think that's the sort of profile we should be going for. A Juranovic level guy in the sense of, like, he's proven, like, we know what we're buying. He's a professional player. He's got years of experience under his belt. It's not just a highlight reel the guy's got. He's got a track record. Now, I think for the last year or so, Alexander Prass has probably been one of the most kind of slept on wonder kids that's in one of the lower European leagues. He's a guy that's came through the Salzburg Youth Academy, and then to get his first team chance, he made the move to Sturm Graz. And over the last couple of years, he's been playing European football. He's been all playing at the top end of the Austrian Bundesliga, which again, to our domestic level, I don't think it's not that bad of a comparison. The Austrian league does feel a bit more, it's very much more timid, you know, it's much more about technical football and such. But this guy is a real up-and-comer. He plays left midfield, but he's very versatile. He can play in centre mid. He could play, I think he could play left back for us. Some of you who watch Prass might spit out there, but I think at left back he would be like overpowered for us in our team, especially domestically, when he would be a real overload, because he is like a left mid. He can play attacking mid. He's a really good set piece taker and that kind of thing as well. Good delivery on creating chances, that sort of thing. And as you can see here, he's not white. He's not totally lighting the world alight. You know, he's a good prospect. He's a guy that is at a strong team domestically, is used to competing at the top end, plays for a team that has relative fan base, that have high expectations, you know, and have derbies and that kind of thing. And, you know, he's used to kind of fighting in that sense. And when you look at, you know, some of the players that we've signed, again, Juranovic is just right at the front of my mind right now. But even Van Dijk, when we bought him in from, like, Groningen, you know, he wasn't, like, 19 and, like, up and coming and getting all these youth international caps and stuff like that. He'd got a couple of years, he'd played a bit of football, and we kind of knew what we were getting from him. And this guy, again, is versatile enough that I don't think he really would disrupt the squad. I think if we did sign an out-and-out left-back, Taylor's such a big figure, maybe there's a wee bit of disharmony that would come with that. But this guy could compete against Taylor. He could compete in these positions here against Home, Rio Hatate. He could really play instead of McGregor. Maybe not O'Reilly as much, you know, but he could really fill in over anywhere on this left-hand side in a multitude of situations against any kind of opponent. And again, Champions League is maybe a level that would be a bit of a gamble. He's played like Europa League and Europa Conference League, that kind of thing. So, you know, he's done a bit of European football, which is nice. He's currently contracted to 2026, so he's got a decent contract. And Sturm Graz probably wouldn't sell him for like £1 million or something. This is a player we probably would need to spend £7 million on or something like that. Maybe 4 or 5, I don't know. But like, you know, he's not going to be uber cheap. You know, they know he's a good player. He's one of their best players. And again, I don't think, even to us, they wouldn't sell him like mad cheap. So you would really need to get the player bought in. Don't think that'd be a problem. But yeah, it would need to be a decent fee. Don't think he comes cheap. Now, when I heard Brendan Rodgers, I think it was after one of the Champions League games, saying we need better quality, we need a bit more power and a bit more experience in the team, you know, at that level, that kind of Champions League level. The first thing that runs to my mind is there any high quality players that are at like a top 6 team across one of the European Big Five leagues, for example, that has just been absolutely snowed under by more quality being bought over them, or maybe they had an injury they recovered from but never really regained their place in the team, or, is there any situations like that? And one of the most fun teams to watch this season has been Bayern Leverkusen. If you haven't watched them, I highly recommend it. It's always good fun. But a few years ago, I started watching them, and, they're good for scoring goals and all the rest of it. And like 2 or 3 seasons ago, one of their most exciting midfielders by a long way, I had really high hopes for him, was a guy by the name of Nadim Amiri. Now, the German international midfielder here has played for Hoffenheim, he's played for Leverkusen. He is a bit of a jack of all trades midfielder, has a defensive side to his game. He's got a lot of attacking side to his game as well. And if you look at his highlight reel, but again, a guy who's played Bundesliga football consistently. He's not just a highlight reel player, he's a track record player. His injury record isn't amazing, but he is fit, he is available, he's out of contract in the coming summer. So again, if we picked him up in January, it maybe cost almost nothing, or maybe we could sign a deal on to get him in January as well. I think he's had some links to Turkey and maybe some other Bundesliga teams, but Nadim Amiri is a really creative playmaker who could be better than Rio Hatate at this job, for example, and would really level us up. I love Hatate, big fan, but like that's the kind of role he could play. And that's the kind of level he could play it too for me if he's fit and available. And that's the kind of guy I think we need in midfield. We need a guy who is used to playing elite teams in European football. It's not a big deal. And that can either be because they've played lots of European football, or it could be domestically they've operated in a top 5 league for long enough. And we've not seen a signing like that come into Celtic in a little while. And I think Nadim Amiri would be a really good profile midfield-wise for what we need here. And also the actual profile, again, he's 27. You kind of know what you're buying when you get him. Now, I also think we should really be trying to emphasise Scottish talent, the best talent we possibly can that can try and take the team on and evolve it. And when you look around the league, the main player that is jumping out to me right now that would actually have a place to, would have a role in the team, potentially, get 10 starts a season across all competitions and slowly develop over the next coming seasons, would be Lennon Miller at Motherwell. Now, he's just signed a contract, and I think quietly he's became probably their most important player in midfield. To this point, he's got a really short career, but these really good scores that he's had out of 100 in terms of, the actions that he's had in the match that have been captured coincide with Motherwell's good run of form. And then, play Celtic and Rangers, of course, you kind of expect that. He then gets sent off, and then he's kind of out the team now, injured. You can see the results have kind of waned ever since. But I think this is a guy that, hey, you just give Motherwell 2 million quid, just give them $1.5 million, whatever. If you look at what we've been spending money on so far, like 600k for Quan, I don't know what we spent on, well, we didn't spend anything on Carthy, but we've been giving him wages. Even if we look at the McCarthy wages, we could have probably had the transfer fee together to get somebody like Lennon Miller in, who can play alongside McGregor, can get some minutes in the UCL for us, and at 17, can just develop into being that player for us. And, I do think we've tried that with Turnbull. We've tried with a few players to moderate success and, some less success. But I do think what this team needs is a strong midfielder that's going to grow with the team and does both sides of the game, which this guy does already, very young in his career. I think could be really good. One of the problems you have with Lennon Miller signing, but for me, is that you maybe stifle his progress if you don't give him meaningful minutes throughout the season, like 10 starts, 5 or 6 of them need to be games that have a temperature in them. They have to have something going. It might not need to be everything, but it certainly needs to be 3 points, or, going through the next round of the cup. At the very least, you're playing against guys that are going to give it their all against you. So I think, that's the worry I have with those kind of links, is that we take a guy in and stifle him. But I would like to think Lennon Miller, if we did bring him in, would get, I think Rodgers does value the Scottish element, the homegrown element of the team, and I think he would emphasise that in the best possible way, not the Scott Bain way, as it were. Now, I mentioned MLS earlier in the video, and MLS is a league that I've kind of enjoyed following from afar because it's brand new. So every time you're seeing something, it's like the first time something's happened, or if a team wins 2 in a row, you can watch football history being made. I kind of like that angle of it. They don't take themselves too seriously. They like to see lots of goals. They sign good players when they can. And yeah, it's just one of those ones. But 2 seasons ago, NYCFC, the Man City team, won everything, and they had a really good team full of wonder kids. 1 or 2 of them have left. Some of them haven't really kicked on since they've left, and they've retained a few of them. But they had a terrible year last year. They've kept the same coach. I don't think they're going to be moving up next year, but they still have some wildly talented players in their ranks, and 1 or 2 of them are probably overdue a move to Europe. Now, I really like Talis Magno, but since we've signed Palma and we seem to be putting a bit of faith into him, Magno is firmly a left winger. It would have been a fantastic replacement for Jota. And if we are going to like actually replace Jota, Talis Magno is my pick, right? 100%. But from what I said at the tip off to the video, I think we need someone who can play in all the attacking positions and offer goals, assists, can really offer the team a lot in a lot of different situations. And honestly, Santi Rodriguez for me is a guy that European football for some reason hasn't really came sniffing for. I hope he would be, I hope as I say this, it's not like some sort of qualification thing that he struggles with, because he has had caps at youth level, and I think all of these kind of rules have kind of laxed ever so slightly. He has got a contract he's not that long into. He was on loan before, now it's permanent. You know how all that City Football Group stuff works, but we have a good relationship with them. We could get a deal, I think, to bring in a guy like Santi Rodriguez, who is firmly a number 10. Like, if you ask him his best position, it's centre mid, it's centre attacking mid, and he could play centre mid for us, like the way that Rodgers has tried to play Turnbull with O'Reilly. Santi Rodriguez could do that role no problem, but he can also play wide forward, and I think if we were absolutely desperate, he has played false 9 for NYC. He could do it for us maybe once, you know, he could do it. I wouldn't say we want him to, but he has that in him. He can play anywhere in the forward positions, and this is a guy that, you know, last 40 games, 10 assists, 7 goals, and that's in bad form. That's in a team that sucked. Excuse the Americanism there. A wee bit of form towards the end of the season, but NYC were rubbish this year. And yeah, there wasn't many goals to be involved in for him. But that's not a bad turnout, I think, over the last 40 matches still, all the same. And because they didn't do that great last year, like if you tried to buy these guys after NYC win the cup and they're the top team in the division, they're going to cost you, like, they tried to sell Tati Castellanos, who we played against. He plays for Lazio now. They tried to sell him into Europe for like 15, 20 million after winning the cup, and nobody was interested. They had to loan him to Girona. He had to score 4 goals against Real Madrid, and then Lazio paid like 15, 12 million for him or something. So that was the best player after they won the cup. Now the best, probably the best player they've got at the moment, and they've not just won the cup and they're on a bit of a downward. I think we could probably get him for a Celtic, you know, a price the board would really like. And with him being Uruguayan, with him being South American, an attacking player with some flair, can take some set pieces, could score a free kick for us, that kind of thing. Then again, it's a guy you could imagine the club getting excited about signing, putting on the Champions League stage, and waiting for the phone to ring. So I don't know what I think about the goalkeeper situation. I've just put the players in that I've used in this video as like the placeholders, but I think that makes the team look way better if we added in, like the manager said, 4 more players. You then deal with the goalkeeper situation, replace Hart with whatever. But then for the outfield, adding in 4 more players of quality into these sorts of positions, I think gives the team a whole different makeup, a whole different outlook. And like I said earlier, like even if you look at this green team, the strongest team that we have on paper, and really think about who did they play with this team, nobody. We've not played anyone with this team. Better get Abada back in. I don't think he's leaving, Abada. And then I suppose we've got Palmer now back in. Now with Prass in here, maybe there's a wee bit too much left field coverage. So, you know, maybe, I don't know. Think about that what you will. But I do think in midfield, like the sort of personalities, the sort of profiles that we've discussed already, as well as the positional versatility, I think 2 out of these 3 would certainly be needed. And again, you can eliminate whoever you want. Probably Prass makes sense visually here. But yeah, an up-and-comer like Santi is undervalued, and then a guy that's been around the block who we could get in a really good situation for incoming for us, like an Amiri who can play, again, both sides of the game, can fill in a lot of other attacking roles. I think that helps us a lot. And again, you're probably shouting, we need in our defensive mid, but I'm not convinced that's the way we're going. I'm not hearing those links coming out. There's no smoke for that fire. But yeah, I'll be really interested to hear what you guys think down in the comment section of the video. I hope you've enjoyed this one. On screen and now with some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this one, and hail, hail.